Let's be honest, America didn't just build the world's biggest economy. It built the world's operating system. Every country trades, borrows, and measures value in dollars. Even when two countries, say, India and Russia, trade oil, they often still use the US dollar. How did that happen? Did the rest of the planet just say, sure, America, take our money too? Well, kind of. But the real story is way more cunning. Because while other nations were rebuilding after World War II, the US wasn't just rebuilding, it was reprogramming the global economy in green ink. This isn't a story about paper money. It's a story about power, invisible, unchallenged, and quietly addictive. And spoiler alert, once you understand how the dollar rules the world, you'll realize the empire isn't in Washington, it's in your wallet. Part 1. World War II, America's accidental monopoly. When World War II ended, most of Europe was rubble. Britain was broke. France was exhausted. But the US, it was untouched and rich beyond imagination. America had 2/3 of the world's gold reserves. It produced half of the world's industrial goods. And it had the one thing everyone needed: stability. So, in 1944, when 44 countries met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to design the new financial order, guess who set the rules? Yep, the host, America. The deal was simple and genius. Every other country would tie its currency to the US dollar, and the US would tie the dollar to gold at $35 an ounce. That meant if you trusted gold, you had to trust the dollar. And if you wanted gold, you had to go through the US. So overnight, the dollar became the world's middleman. Every global transaction had to flow through it. Part 2. But what happens when the middleman gets greedy? America realized something. If everyone needs dollars to trade, America can print what everyone else works for. And that's exactly what it did. Through the 1950s and 60s, the US spent lavishly on wars, highways, space races, and everything else that screamed superpower. Other countries started asking, wait, how many of these dollars are actually backed by gold? By 1971, France literally sent a warship to the US to demand its gold back. President Nixon's response, he simply said, nope. He closed the gold window. The dollar was no longer backed by anything except faith, fear, and the US military. It was supposed to be a disaster. Instead, it made the dollar even more powerful, because the world didn't have a backup plan. Part 3. The Petrodollar trap. Here's where the genius or evil brilliance hits maximum level. In 1974, just 3 years after Nixon killed the gold standard, the US made a quiet deal with Saudi Arabia. America would protect the Saudis militarily. And in return, every oil trade in the world would be done in US dollars. Think about that. Every country that needs oil, which means every country now also needs dollars. If Japan wants oil, it must buy dollars first. If Germany wants oil, dollars. If India wants oil, same story. This created permanent demand for the dollar, not because people liked it, but because they needed it. It's not the petrodollar system, it's the economic blackmail system, just with better branding. Part 4. Why enemies still use the dollar. You know it's powerful when even America's enemies can't escape it. Iran, sanctioned, still needs dollars for trade. Russia, kicked out of SWIFT, still relies on dollar conversions through backdoors. China, trying to create its own yuan-based trade system, but 80% of its global transactions still go through the dollar. The dollar isn't just money anymore, it's a gatekeeping system. If the US doesn't like you, it can freeze your assets, cut off your access, or block your trade wall without firing a single bullet. That's not capitalism. That's economic imperialism with Wi-Fi access. Part 5. The free lunch of a lifetime. Every other country has to earn dollars through exports. America, it just prints them. That's why the US can run trillion-dollar deficits, and the world still calls its bonds safe. When the Federal Reserve prints money, inflation hits everywhere else first. It's like America sneezes, and the rest of the world catches a financial flu. The US doesn't export products, it exports debt, and the world happily buys it, because it has no choice. Part 6. The dollar's kryptonite. But here's the twist. The same power that made the dollar invincible could also make it fragile. Because the second the world finds a real alternative, the dollar's magic ends. And some countries are trying. China with the digital yuan, Russia and India trading in local currencies. BRICS talking about a new world reserve currency. But even if that happens, it'll take decades. Because trust isn't built overnight. And right now, the world still trusts one thing more than anything else: American chaos. When things go bad globally, people don't run from the dollar. They run to it. So yes, the US has aircraft carriers, nukes, and McDonald's in 100 countries. But its most powerful export is still belief. Belief that a piece of green paper can buy anything, anywhere. Belief that the dollar will always hold. Belief that America, no matter how messy, will always pay its debts. That's not just economics. That's faith-based geopolitics. The world doesn't bow to America because it fears the US. It bows because it needs it. So next time someone talks about the American empire, don't look at the Pentagon. Look at your wallet. The empire's been there the whole time. If this blew your mind, hit subscribe. Because next week on Unpacking America, we're tackling why every country copies the US, even when they hate it.